Hey everyone, it's Lisa Kostova. I'm a leadership coach for entrepreneurs using astrological insight. And today I'm really excited to chat with you about the skills and talents that make anybody carrying a lot of Virgo energy successful. And I'm talking about entrepreneurs and people who are using the qualities of the Virgo energy, whether it's through their sun sign. So if you were born from late August through late September, your sun is in Virgo. Or if they've taken a look at their full chart and are able to see where else in their chart there are Virgo energies. This message is for you because all of us have a part of ourselves, a part in our chart that's really wired for these talents and skills that I'm going to talk about that are really, really specific for the Virgo energy. So, in our last episode, we covered the common misconceptions and stereotypes about Virgo being a perfectionist, being very nitpicky, being a clean freak. Yes, all of these are sometimes true, but they stem from the real talents and the real skills that Virgos have. And today we're going to be talking about famous entrepreneurs who embody those skills, and I'll show you, we'll unpack exactly how they demonstrate those talents and they build their skills to be successful in their businesses. So we are first going to start with the skill of detail, of orientation to detail, and of really doing a masterful job, doing a craftsman job at whatever it is that you're engaged with. See, Virgos or people carrying Virgo energy have the potential to be master craftsmen, masters at creating the finer details, looking at the finer points in whatever it is that they're doing, whether they're writing a book, creating a project, working on a marketing campaign, or as you'll see with one of our examples, making an actual physical object such as a kitchen knife. So I want to talk to you about one of my favorite and one of the world's most famous and beloved entrepreneurs and writers, and that's J.K. Rowling. Now, if you know when she was born, you'll ask me, well, Lisa, hold on, she's not born during the Virgo season. And it's true. The sun sign of J.K. Rowling is actually a Leo. But this is where astrology gets to be so insightful, especially working with your own chart gets to be so revealing. When you look at her chart, she's got a whole parade of planets. She's got a huge concentration of energy in Virgo. In fact, Virgo is the strongest energy that she carries. And so, if you think about the genius of her novels, of Harry Potter and the story, it's not about the plot necessarily. It's not about having a hero or having an attractive character as the base of her story. It's not about what happens, but it's largely about the level of detail and the fact that she created and imagined this whole world in its complete, in its completion, in its wholeness, with every little detail thought out, with every little part of the world connected to everything else. She has a whole genealogy of monsters, and she even had a follow-up book about these monsters. And she understands how this whole world evolved. She has imagined its legacy, its history. She, everything, even the words that the characters are using, everything is tied to another system, something that is complex, that is whole, that is imagined, that makes sense. So all these parts of the story are making sense when put together. There is so much intricacy and so much detail. And if you've watched her any of her interviews, you'll see that she's got boxes and boxes of just notes that she would write about characters that were not even in the book, about how they related to characters that were in the book, what their life story was, what their struggles were. She has a whole, she is so clear on all of these specifics and details that just make us fascinated, because we feel that world, the world of Harry Potter, the world of that magical kingdom is actually complete. It's whole, and there's layers and layers to discover more and more. And don't forget that she wrote 7 huge books, of which the shortest one was the first one, but on average her books are 300-400 pages long. And it takes so much discipline. Like, she talks about when she went to the hotel in Edinburgh to write her last novel, because she needed that discipline. She needed that seclusion from the distractions, because she wanted to focus on her craft. You see, the key to craftsmanship, the key to mastering, is actually putting in constant concerted effort, putting your butt in the seat of your craft and logging in hours every day just writing. All of the prolific writers say that. J.K. Rowling, when she goes and talks about writing and what makes a writer, she says it's just the process of writing. It's just the process of getting things out there. So there is a lot of skill associated that comes from the discipline and the desire to get into the details to do a good job. So Virgo's highest motivation comes from doing an excellent job. And one of my friends, entrepreneurs, she actually has a lot of energy, Virgo energy, the gateway of the part of her chart associated with mission in life, with her career. And she says it best, there is a difference between perfection and excellence. And Virgos can get in trouble by trying to chase perfection, which is an impossible ideal, because they will go in and they will look at the part of the job that's not yet perfect, that's not yet complete. But when you look at your standard being excellence, then that gives you the freedom of achieving excellence in the actual process of working. Can you be in excellence when you sit down and you dedicate your attention and focus to your craft? Can you be in excellence when writing that story, writing that email, creating that video, being totally in the flow in the moment of creating something and doing a good job at it? That is the key for Virgos to really unlock the skills that help propel J.K. Rowling to the success that she has right now. It's through her discipline, through her hard work, her attention to detail, and her consistency in always being focused on doing a good job as a craftsperson. There is another beloved writer and leader of mine that carries a lot of this energy, and that's Brene Brown. And Brene Brown she's got a lot of Scorpio in there as well, but there's a part of her that's very Virgo oriented of her chart. And if you ever saw Brene Brown and all the work that went into her research, she started out as a social researcher, social worker, researching motivations of people and researching vulnerability, researching guilt and shame. That's a whole Scorpionic theme we'll explore later when we get to Scorpio. But for her, I was fascinated. One time I watched an interview with her, and there she was with boxes and boxes, just like J.K. Rowling, boxes and boxes and boxes of notes and letters from people. She was very meticulous at sitting down and sifting through all this information, organizing it. Hundreds of letters from people writing about their experiences of shame and guilt. She not only takes it and reads through it, but she actually is focused on organizing, systematizing it, and coming up with the conclusions, with the results, with the big picture, emerges. And that is founded and grounded on so much detail and research that is pure Virgo. You see, the other talent that Virgos really shine in, that you can develop and bring in your business if you carry a lot of Virgo energy, and that is being so oriented to systematizing and organizing things that you actually enjoy the process. You actually enjoy being in excellence in organizing and systematizing and sifting through things and looking at a lot of information and picking out the patterns, picking out the conclusions, producing research that's based on a lot of research and data. See, that detail orientation and that fascination with systems and organizing is what makes Virgos brilliant at doing an excellent job, brilliant at being excellent organizers, brilliant at just going through the amount of detail and work that people who don't have a lot of Virgo energy can find enjoyment in. That's the secret superpower. If you're blessed with Virgo energy, you're blessed with that ability, with the ability that truly is the hallmark of a craftsman and a master. See, mastery comes from, as I mentioned, logging in hours and hours and days and 10,000 hours behind just working on the mundane details, working on the actual craft. One other person that I see as symbolizing that energy and that mastery of the craft, and now I don't know, I haven't taken a look at his chart. We don't know his birth date or birth time. He's a little bit of a mystery, but I wouldn't be surprised if he carries a lot of that energy. And that's the master knife maker, Bob Kramer. So I did not know who Bob Kramer was, which is another example of Virgo. Because unlike Leo, who are front and center in their brand, it is actually not the personality of the Virgo that's front and center of what they do, but it is their creation. It is their work. It is the systematization of, it is the product, the craft that is the face, that is the front and center of their business. It is the front and center of their legacy in the world. So Bob Kramer, I did not know him because he is a very master craftsman in a specialized field of knife making. And the first time I encountered him, I met him at an EG conference. This is a brilliant conference that showcases people who are obsessed in their craft. Anybody from David Attenborough to famous violinist Joshua Bell, who's literally, I'm talking to him as he's carting around his multi-million-dollar Stradivarius violin, because that's his craft, and he's not separating himself from it even in the buffet line. So this EG conference featured Bob Kramer, and I did not know who he was. He comes on stage, and he's a maker of knives. That's all we knew from the program. And he takes this long piece of wood and this cardboard, and he just takes the knife, and with the lightest flick of his wrist, he just slices the piece of wood as if it was butter, as if it was made out of the tiniest little material possible, and all these sharp shreds start flying on the stage. Then he takes the cardboard, does the same thing, and it was like watching a performer with an amazing instrument. It was like hearing Joshua Bell play a beautiful musical piece on his Stradivarius. And it turned out that Bob Kramer had spent decades in Japan apprenticing with some master knife makers. And he was so obsessed and single-minded about mastering that craft that he had become so good. You cannot buy his knives anymore. His knives are considered the highest quality personalized chef knives that all the top chefs in the world use. I inquired, I wanted to get a knife by him, and he's like, no, I have students now who I train, and they have a 10-year waiting list for their knives. So I found an interview by Anthony Bourdain where he portrays Bob Kramer, and Bob takes him into his workshop in Olympia, Washington, where he's got these crazy details all around the place where he works on his art of creating knives, and he still practices. And that's another thing for Virgos. If you carry a lot of Virgo energy, if you're really oriented towards practicing a craft, my punishment for you would be to give you $10 million and send you on a lonely island where I would require you to only sit on the beach and drink margaritas all day long and never ever practice any of your work or serve anyone or do your craft. That would be the punishment for a Virgo. So Bob Kramer, he's born in the 50s, so what is he now? He's in his 60s or 70s even. No, 60s. And he is just cranking out these knives. And Anthony Bourdain comes in and Bob shows him these like intricate plates where there's multiple layers of metals. He shows him a piece of a meteorite that he gets to melt and put in his knives. And it's just mind-boggling. And it's mind-boggling the level of detail, the level of focus, the level of fascination with all these tiny, tiny pieces that truly differentiate the master from the ordinary knife maker. So I'll actually link to that video. I would love for you to watch it if you're interested. It'll give you that sense of craftsmanship, of mastery that comes with the Virgo energy. So I mentioned the fact that as a Virgo or somebody carrying a lot of Virgo energy, your brand is not so much associated with you as the personality, although that could really depend on what other energies you carry and where that Virgo energy is positioned. It could be more associated with you as a personality, but it's actually associated with your work, your legacy, your service, your product. So J.K. Rowling, I mean, we know of her, we know who she is, but because of her big Virgo energy, we are actually associated her with her work, with Harry Potter and his world. Another person who, I don't know exactly, I have to check and see if he was a Virgo, but carries some of that like super master craftsmanship energy is the author of the trilogy of Lord of the Rings, Tolkien. He actually invented a whole language. Elvish was an actual language that had its own alphabet and its own rules that he invented. And much like J.K. Rowling, he imagined a whole world in its intricacy, in its detail. There was so much detail there, and all these stories that were behind the scenes that were not even part of the book influenced the book and tied into it. And so, you know, just like J.K. Rowling and Tolkien is known for that body of work that he produced, that craft. Bob Kramer, not known as Bob Kramer, but everybody knows his knives, or people in that niche, in that specialization, know his work, his knives. His knives are what is the face and what is the essence of his brand, of his service. Service is another one that is a huge word, a huge energy for Virgos. And I want to read something that I encountered that Marianne Williamson said about service. She said, we want to create, we want to be productive and serve others and share our gifts with the world. Often it is not external forms of obstruction that hold us back, but internal ones. And nothing releases us internally more than the desire and willingness to serve. So when we talk about service and bringing that service into the world through your work, through your attention to detail, through your mastery of your craft, that is high Virgo. Virgo's oriented towards service. Brene Brown was oriented to service, like serving others, and she still goes and leads workshops and is busy practicing her craft talking to people about vulnerability and shame and guilt. J.K. Rowling still writes. Another Virgo, famous Virgo, Stephen King. How many books has Stephen King produced? He must be one of the most prolific writers of any time. He just cranks them out. And when you study him, first of all, he's super private. There's a lot of Scorpio in there at work as well, as you would imagine with somebody writing his type of genre. But there is this focus on his work as craft. In fact, he has a whole book and he has a whole philosophy that he teaches aspiring writers. That is literally structure your day. So structure is another excellent word for Virgos. It's about developing good habits of work that are providing the content and the structure, the container and the structure for your work, for practicing your craft. Structuring your day. So he structures his habits, his day, in such a way that the whole morning is spent literally sitting in a long writing session, just cranking out whatever material, whatever number of words that he's committed for the day. Just cranking out writing. J.K. Rowling did the same thing when she secluded herself in that hotel in Edinburgh. Another Virgo that you may have come across, he's not as famous as some of the other ones, but he's definitely a famous medium, is James Van Praagh. And James Van Praagh is, his birthday was just yesterday, so at the beginning of Virgo season. And I had the honor and privilege of working with James to actually develop a writing habit. He had a small course of people learning how to actually write a book. And his one thing was like he had such a routine. Wake up in the morning, get my coffee, sit down, here's my area, here's my space. From this time to this time, I'm just focused on producing numbers of words, output. I'm just writing. And this is somebody who's so connected to spirit and the divine that, you should probably think that, oh, maybe he's just channeling things and maybe he just gets in the groove and channels. No, he actually works at it. He actually creates the habits and the rituals in the space to work on his craft. Just like Stephen King, just create the space, the rituals, the habit. Habit is another word that's excellent for Virgos. Create a success habit. You have so much energy focused on doing a good job that if you are not channeling it in a productive way, it's going to blow up. It's going to flow over into areas of your life like being nitpicky with your family about how clean something is and how well done something is, like in the kitchen, or just seeing the flaws in your environment, in your surroundings. Channel that productive energy away from perfectionism into being in excellence. Create habits that support you, create systems that support you. Feed your desire to be of service to others, and feed your desire to be a master, to craft something, to master the art of your craftsmanship, of whatever it is that you selected to focus your energy on. Become a master at it, and that means creating the daily work, the daily attention to detail, putting in systems in place and organizations in place to support you in creating volume, in creating a body of work that is just output. Because the more you do it, the more you focus on the excellence of being in excellence anytime you produce, anytime you're in your craft, the better and the more perfect, even though nothing's ever perfect, the more perfect your final product will be, because it's just a matter of the journey. It's just a matter of logging in the effort, just a matter of logging in the hours, just a matter of putting in the structures and the systems to support you in that effort. And the product is this voluminous body of work and mastery of your craft that ends up being your legacy in the world, ends up being your service in this world. I know this topic is such a big passion of mine because I do have a very strong Virgo energy as well. In fact, my soul's mission in this life is very much connected with service and Virgo and mastery. And it is an evolution of a journey that starts with apprenticing, with putting in the hours as a student. And the key for you as a Virgo, or carrying a lot of Virgo energy, is at what point, because there has to come a point where you transition from being a student and learning and mastering something to where you become the master craftsman, and then you start teaching those who come behind you. You start bringing them forward. It is the concept of lineage. It's the concept of passing the torch onwards. You are a link in the chain of a lineage of whatever craft it is that you selected. And just as you've learned from your master teachers, you get that to take that torch and pass it to somebody after you. You have the responsibility to do that. So as a Virgo, please don't get stuck in the I need to learn more, I need to be more prepared, I need to master this, I need to master that. No, at some point you've mastered enough. You've practiced enough. And now your responsibility is not just to serve your clients, but also to serve and mentor those who are coming in an apprenticeship role towards you. I love you, and I will see you next time. Bye.